British Columbia has now declared a provincial state of emergency because of wildfire situation. And this is no longer a simple story about smoke somewhere in the forest. People have been ordered to leave their homes. Communities are under serious pressure. Home and properties have already been lost. And Premier David Abbey said today, some people became trapped as conditions quickly changed and had to be rescued. This tells us immediately the kind of situation that we are dealing with. Saturday, Reuters reported that the Ball Range fire has grown to roughly 9,500 hectares. Summerland and Peachland were among the communities affected by evacuation orders. This matters nationally because we are talking about populated parts of British Columbia. We are talking about homes, farms, business, and Canada's most important wine and orchard regions. This is not just an isolated stretch of forest. People are living there. People set up business and living there. These are the communities that have children, elderly parents, employees, pets, and so on. When an evacuation order arrives suddenly, all the normal things that we argue every day on daily basis, that they become secondary. We need to get out quickly as soon as possible, because that's the priority. And for anyone that are directly affected by this situation, the advice is very simple. Follow the evacuation orders and information that is coming from your local authorities and official emergency channels. This is not the time to rely on rumors that are circulating on social media. Conditions may change too quickly. But there is another side to wildfire disasters that we don't talk about enough, because the financial damage starts long before we know the final number of structures that were lost. Let's imagine running a family business in an evacuated community. Let's say, for example, let's say it's a restaurant or maybe a small retail shop. That building could still be standing, but if the customers are gone and the services are disrupted, the business is effectively shut down. Imagine about being an hourly worker in the same business. Houses may be safe, but suddenly workplace cannot open and lives flip upside down. That is why natural disasters become economic events very quickly. Because first, there is an immediate emergency. Next comes a temporary accommodation. Third, jobs lost, income lost. Fourth, insurances, claims, business got disrupted, agriculture losses. That is why natural disasters become economic events very quickly. For certain regions affected by the wildfires, tourism piece matters, because these are the regions where people travel during exactly the same time of year. There are wineries, orchards, hotels, and restaurants that depend heavily on summer season. When a major wildfire hits during peak tourism season, impact doesn't stop at the fire level. The entire economy gets disrupted. Entire livelihoods will be gone. And now, we need to be careful here because the damage is not known yet, fully at least. I would say we should not start throwing out estimates while our firefighters, and emergency services are still dealing with this active situation. And on the same way, we don't need a final dollar figure to understand the scale of disruption. This raises a bigger Canadian level question. What do we think about wildfire preparedness now? Because at certain point, these wildfires cannot be treated as once in a year surprise. Because Canada has already seen millions of acres burned this year, and in last year and the year before. According to reports on Saturday, British Columbia had more than 100 wildfires. So emergency preparedness cannot begin when smoke becomes visible from somebody's yard. It has to happen before the fire. And again, this applies to the government. But on the same way, it also applies to the households. If you are living in a region with a meaningful wildfire risk, then know where your official emergency information comes from. Know how your municipality will contact you. And know what you have to do actually if you had to leave on a short notice. If an authority tells you to evacuate, do not treat that as a suggestion, because that is a emergency planning. That's basic emergency planning. And when the emergency is over, there is another conversation about how communities are rebuilt and protected. Because rebuilding the exact same vulnerability and hoping for a different result doesn't make sense. And that does not mean a wildfire can be prevented. But building standards, vegetation management, emergency and infrastructure planning, all affect the communities, all affect how communities handle fire. And then there is insurance problem, because this may become another biggest financial story attached to extreme weather events over the next coming decades. Insurance companies pay the risk. If the expected cost of disasters rise, the eventuality feeds into premiums, deductibles, coverage conditions, or in the worst case, availability. And that's how something happened in British Columbia can eventually become part of nationwide affordability conversation. So, here is what I don't want us to do. I don't want us to turn this situation into a political argument, because at least now, and there will be time in future to debate this topic. Right now, the first priority must be safety. Then we can ask what worked, what did not work, and what we need to improve, what needs to be done to improve before the next fire event, before the next calamity, or before next the fire event. Because for sure there will be another event. May not be may not be in the same area, and may not be this year. But Canada has to plan, but we has to build a better plan as part of risk management. For people directly affected, this is about safety first. For the rest of Canada, this is a lesson learned, and the lesson is preparedness. Wildfires are no longer just an environmental story; they are finance stories. They are family finance stories. This is a housing story. This is an insurance story. This is a business story, infrastructure story. We can add this to anything. We can join this to anything. Can create stories for any sector now. I think we can connect this situation to any story, any sector now. So we'll keep watching what happens in British Columbia.